The Matrix may not be the best 4K disc we've seen so far, but so many people have asked me to take a look at it that it's finally time to revisit this hugely successful film from 1999. The basic premise of the film is that we're all living inside a computer program, and looking at the real world portrayed in the Matrix, they'd all be better off staying within that computer program. So that's the basic premise of the storyline, but it's served up with the addition of Keanu Reeves, who, whatever anyone thinks of Keanu Reeves, he always brings a certain presence to a film and gives it something special. Lawrence Fishburne is excellent in everything he does, and Carrie Ann Moss and a few others make this all something different and probably part of its overwhelming success. And looking at that success, an estimated budget of $63 million and a worldwide gross of $466 million, it is clear to see that that success was massive. Presumably the film tapped into the ever-growing popularity of computer games at that time, and The Matrix gave gamers the opportunity to live out a computer game-like experience in a cinema on a big screen. So given this, there are a lot of computer-generated images in this film, and at times it's quite jarring when they appear because the picture quality really does deteriorate quite markedly. And I believe it's a CGI, but equally it could be poor quality opticals where two or more elements have been composited together. But whatever the case, the picture quality in The Matrix on 4K is variable. However, not to worry, because this was exactly how I remembered it in the cinema. So there's nothing wrong with the transfer, nothing wrong with the scan of the negative or however it was done. This was as it appeared back in 1999. There is and always was a green hue to the film, which gives it a somewhat depressing look. But when some colour does appear on the screen, the picture quality is actually very good. After running the 4K, I put the Blu-ray in to check that out against the 4K, and the Blu-ray is even less colourful than the 4K, and it doesn't seem to look quite as sharp as the 4K. So there appears to be quite a downturn between the two, but looking at the menus, it looks like they were all taken from the same master, but others may know different to me. It may be an older Blu-ray and not look quite as good as the new 4K for that reason. The box tells us that the sound is Dolby Atmos, but rest assured you've got to select Dolby Atmos through the menu. The default is Dolby Digital 5.1, so it appears there's a bit of an error there, and I expect quite a few people out there have been caught out and thought they listened to a very good Dolby Atmos track, whereas in fact it's just a very good Dolby Digital 5.1. You probably won't notice much difference because in here on our THX 5.1 it sounded just like a Dolby Atmos track, but THX does have that effect, and you do get all these phantom speakers in the ceiling, at the sides, and in fact all around you that don't really exist, but that's just different sound systems and the way they work. The screen ratio is 2.4 to 1, and it is the right shape for a film such as The Matrix. Now, I know a lot of people out there who prefer 16:9. They prefer it because that fills their television screen or their widescreen screen that they've purchased to put on the wall. Rest assured that when you saw this in the cinema, the masking went wider, and you got a much bigger image to fill your field of view. And that was the idea of the scope frame right back in the day when Cinerama really first introduced us to the widescreen process, and then other processes came along such as CinemaScope, which was introduced to us with the Robe in 1953, I think it was, and that was 35mm with a 2x squeeze anamorphic lens. It wasn't as successful as the later Panavision because CinemaScope had a tendency to give actors what was known as the CinemaScope mumps, whereby the anamorphic lenses tended to distort the images a bit, and close-ups you'd have a fatter face than you really had. But that was where the frame came from, and that was what was behind it. So if you've got a 16:9 screen, that's why you can't fill it with a 2:3:5, 2:4 to 1 aspect ratio. What you really need is a 2:4 to 1 aspect ratio screen and side masking. So every time there's a wider screen film to go on it, you open up the masking. Anyway, simple lesson over there, let's move on. There were two sequels to The Matrix. There was Revolutions and Reloaded, but I never actually saw either of those films. But the Wachowski brothers did do another thing based on The Matrix, but it came out on DVD and it was a series of cartoons called the Animatrix. But the reason I got it was because on Super 8 there had been some extracts that came out from the Matrix series, and I can't remember the exact extracts that came out, but I think it was the fight in the train station from the Matrix that made it onto Super 8 in the scope frame. But one extract that I was very taken with was from the Animatrix, and it was the first cartoon on that disc, The Final Flight of the Osiris. That came out on Super 8, and I think it really suits the Matrix world with the motion capture cartoon, the computer cartoon, and it even suits it better being on Super 8. It gives it a certain sort of magic and makes it highly repeatable, and I love that reel. So I thought I was really going to enjoy The Matrix, revisiting it again after all these years, but it still wasn't really what I would say is a great film, but I know a lot of people out there love it. And as much as I don't think I can recommend the 4K disc for exceptional picture quality, it is probably as good as I saw back in the cinema in 1999. So if you really like The Matrix and you haven't got The Matrix on 4K, I would say it's worth a purchase. One final thing to mention is that there is a third disc in here that is solely for the extras. I haven't been through that disc yet, but there is a lot on there it seems, and there are some commentaries on the main discs, so more to bear in mind if considering a purchase of this 4K title. Anyway, I think that brings us to the end. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and perhaps consider subscribing, because I'm sure Apocalypse Now in 4K is coming next. So until that next video, bye-bye for now.